Welcome to my review of Colin in Black on White. It was so good, mesmerizing, captivating, so many hidden meanings, you know. Like some of those things in the film documentary series, it's like you have to be black to notice it or even understand it or even begin to grasp it. And that's one of the things I liked about Colin in Black and White. I binge watched this series like I binge watched Cobra Kai season 1. The first episode made me cry when they cut his hair so he could stay on the baseball team. Yeah, that's probably why he didn't like baseball anymore and wanted to play football instead. That's so traumatizing, to experience that at so young of an age. And, you could see why he wears an afro right now, too. I mean, I've heard stories from biracials about their white parents. And Kaepernick had 2 white parents because he was adopted. You know, biracials, a lot of times they're just telling it like it is. They're just keeping it real. You can't live your life in delusions and lies. You're going to have a wake-up call one way or another, and that wake-up call could cost you your life. So you might as well just live in reality. Some of the stories that I've heard from biracials, a lot of times they are compelled to tell it like it is if their white parent does not understand them. Then they don't. They don't understand the racialized experience that they have with the dominant society. Sometimes it's something that they can work out with their white parent. Sometimes they can work it out with them. Sometimes they can't. It's just what it is. One thing that all biracials can agree on is that they are definitely not seen as a white in this society, not in American society. There was this girl, she had to disown her white mother. Her white mother disowned her because she's experiencing racial discrimination and that kind of thing. And her white mother doesn't understand her. Her white mother is in denial. She's trying to gaslight. So if you think Colin Kaepernick is shitting on his parents, like, you must not have heard the stories from a lot of biracials. And I've heard a lot of them. See, his adoptive parents, who are white, just didn't understand the racial experiences that he was having, with the racial discrimination, racial profiling, not to mention the racial stereotyping. Like in that scene when he was pulled over by the police officer with his parents in the vehicle, and the officer was trying to make it seem as if he kidnapped some white people in the vehicle who were actually his adoptive parents. And even when his parents told the cop that he was their son, the cop was still treating him badly, talking to him very harshly, trying to be a smart mouth. Me, I'm just glad he's alive. That scene was a Philando Castile situation when the cop asked him for his learner's permit and he was reaching for it, and the cop just started yelling at him to not reach into his pocket. I honestly believe that actually happened to Kaepernick in real life when he was only 16. When I was watching that, my heart was beating so fast. Like, oh my God, the actor is so good. My heart stopped when I watched that scene. Like, oh my God, can you imagine a teenager experiencing that? It's insane. See, Kaepernick's parents were very supportive. That can't be denied at all. They supported him when he was in baseball, and even when he felt like his heart was not into that sport and he pursued football, they supported him in that too. You know, he had a 4.0 GPA. So I feel like they were doing the best that they could. But they just didn't understand his racially charged experiences in American society. See, I'm glad that Colin Kaepernick's alive. Seriously. And I think that's mostly because he has sense and he was able to interpret his experiences as a black or biracial male accurately. Because he was able to interpret his experiences so accurately. I think that's why he's alive. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I hope that his parents are more understanding now, because that was when he was in high school. You know, I would assume that his parents grew with him and they evolved with him. He did say in an interview with his parents that it's just been a constant journey for us, and it's one that we work through, and we have always been very loving in the process. So I'll put that interview in the description box if anyone want to watch it. But with all the things Kaepernick's faced in high school, you know, so many obstacles, so many rejection, you know, I feel like his high school experience was very intense. It was difficult for him, you know, but he always rose to the occasion. He always overcame his difficulties. All the hatred that he's gotten from people and the media since he took a kneel during the national anthem, I feel like that pales in comparison to his experiences in high school. I feel like his experiences in high school prepared him for now. Seriously, the hardest part is behind him. That's what I think. It's funny that he grew up with white parents, but he was still subject to racial stereotyping. Like in that hotel, that ice cream scene. Like, how is he still subjected to racial stereotyping when he grew up with white parents? It just tells you that the whole racial profiling, stereotyping, discrimination, that exists within society in a structural manner. Like, it doesn't even care about your background at all. Like, racial stereotyping doesn't care that you're adopted and you grew up with two white parents. Go figure. So my favorite episode was Crystal, but it was also the darkest one for me. When I was watching that, I it got to the scene where he was gonna ask her out, and I was like, oh my god, this is so hard. I was literally covering my eyes because I was so embarrassed for him. I was so shy for him. But he did it, you know. Jaden Michael portrayed that scene so well. I was thinking that if he could ask the dark skinned girl out in high school, despite all the naysayers, then he can do anything. He can be anything he wants in this world, in this life. You know, if he can do that, if he can ask that girl out, he can do anything after that. He can do, you know, literally, the world is at his, you know, his feet. That's what I think. One thing I noticed was that how when we are children and teenagers, we have it right, you know, our intuition is on point, and society leads us in the opposite direction, you know. My favorite scene in the Crystal episode was, of course, the prom scene, because, you know, of course, I was vexed that he did not end up with the girl. Like, it's insane. Like, I was so depressed. You know, there's like so much light in that episode, but at the same time, so much darkness, you know. And later on, all of a sudden, his parents tried to force the white girl on him. Like, they didn't even ask him if he liked that girl. Like, forget about that she's white. Like, forget about her race. Like, his parents, Kaepernick's parents, they didn't even ask him if he was interested in the girl. They didn't even ask him if he even liked the girl. Let's start with that. You know, do you like her? You know, that kind of thing. Notice how his mother said that she was a cheerleader. And I was like, that's interesting, because Crystal, the girl that he was crushing on, was also a cheerleader too, you know. So I think that was kind of interesting. See, dark-skinned girls are the most beautiful. And when Kaepernick was a teenager, he saw that. He knew that. But look at how the pressures of society, his coaches, his parents, all that just led to a different outcome. You know, like, he didn't have that social support to, you know, date who he wanted to date. You know what I'm saying? And that was part of the issue. And then, to add insult to injury, you know, his mother was trying to say that he would forget about the black girl he took to the prom. But if he went to a high school where most of the girls were white, chances are it's the white girls that he'd forget about, not her. You know, there's so few black girls in that school he went to. So I wonder if Kaepernick still keeps in contact with her, you know. So it's interesting, because I now know why he wears his afro so high. But me feel like a dark-skinned girl upon him arm is missing. I have to be honest. Everything him did want in a high school is still yet to manifest itself. Like, I feel like most of the things he wanted, he got it, but not every single thing, you know. So I can see why he has a huge afro, and why he now has his hair in cornrows a lot of times. So it's pretty interesting. And finally, him being rejected from every football team of every university in the country. After I heard that, I was like, oh my god, Kaepernick is a tough cookie. Like, seriously. Like, how do you get rejected from so many universities in the country, and then, he still overcame that, he still rose to the occasion and, became one of the best. And it's interesting that he would get rejected from so many universities in the country when we know that most of the coaches are white. And I feel like, right now, most of the players in the NFL are black. And most of the best players are black. So why are most of the coaches not black? Literally, black men know how to play the game very well. And then it led me to ask, what if most of the coaches were black? Would it have still been difficult for Kaepernick? Would he still have been rejected so much from so many universities? That's a question worth asking. I feel like his difficulties made him a much stronger person because he was able to overcome these difficulties. Why he's such a force to be reckoned with right now. And then there's also the NFL being compared to a plantation. You're this millionaire slave kind of thing. If that's the case, then Kaepernick would be a slave that revolted, took a stand, and now he's off the plantation. He's free. So I feel like that's a good analogy. If you understand that the NFL being compared to a slave plantation is an analogy, if you understand how it's an analogy, it actually makes sense. Also, it was interesting that he was noticed when he was playing basketball. Like, he wasn't even playing football when he was noticed. He was playing basketball. That was when one of the coach's colleagues from the University of Nevada noticed Cap on the basketball court. I feel like the colleague must have seen the power in Kaepernick. See, if I was one of those coaches, I would sign him up for a scholarship based on his drive and passion alone. Because once you have that, there's nothing stopping you. Seriously. Just like when the series ended, Kaepernick said, trust the power in you. And he was stressing that so much because, that's what he lived by, believing in yourself, believing in what you are capable of, believing in your own power. And for me, that's the number one thing I learned from the series. Trust your power. Love your blackness. Lastly, the book scene is very symbolic of how ahead of his time Colin Kaepernick is. Like, I don't think he lives in this time period. He reminds me of Nipsey Hussle. A truth seeker. They both kept it 100% real. They both cared about people and what they were struggling with. The power is within you. You heard it. I'm more than just a quarterback. To the underestimated, the overlooked, and the outcast, trust your power. when I saw and heard about Colin Kaepernick for the first time, it was on the news. He was literally just explaining why he was not standing for the national anthem in the NFL games. I was thinking, how is that a big deal? Why is that a big deal? Why is that even on national news? What's the big deal if he's kneeling, during the national anthem? Like, who cares? I just didn't understand what was going on. I didn't know why that was on national news. This was the first time I think my eyes opened to what was really going on in these, the sports industry in this society. See, football in this society makes members of the dominant society feel like racial killings are trivial matters, like it's not a big deal even when it's an epidemic. So when Kaepernick kneeled, he stated that this was as a protest against the killings of unarmed citizens, predominantly African Americans and other minorities in the U.S. He said, "I am not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color." Close quote. Kaepernick told NFL media in an exclusive interview after a game. He also said, "This is not something that I am going to run by anybody." He said, "I am not looking for approval. I have to stand up for people that are oppressed. If they take football away my endorsements from me, I know that I stood up for what is right." I just thought he was honest. The whole truth and nothing but the truth about what he was doing, regardless of the repercussions that would follow. He was practicing his freedom of religion and expression. Therefore, I don't think people should have made a big deal about him kneeling during the national anthem. Them making a big deal tells you that kneeling to the dominant society was like a spit in their face. It was like he spit and shit and kicked them in the face. That was like telling them that America is not perfect. It's not equal, and there's a lot of work to be done. You can be a millionaire and you're still being ordered around, told what to do, told what to feel, told what to think, told what to say. At that point, you're just a slave at that point. You're a millionaire slave at that point. How can you be a millionaire and you can still get fired? Like, make that make sense. Anyhow, back to the series. That young man that played Colin Kaepernick, Jaden Michael, was so talented. I felt like I was watching a young teenage Kaepernick the whole time. That's how good that actor was. I felt like he was actually Kaepernick. That's how I felt. So I look forward to seeing him in future films. Very bright young star, Jaden Michael. I feel like they should do more episodes and show us Kaepernick's experience in college, because I know he went through BS in college too. I mean, it might not have been as bad as high school, but I know he went through some BS in college. By that time, he's accustomed to BS. Seriously. And he doesn't let it shake him. And that's why he gets so much hatred, because he doesn't let all that stuff get to his head. It doesn't shake him. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, thank you for listening to my review of Colin in Black and White. Go ahead and subscribe, leave a comment. See, his parents were very supportive. Very, very supportive. They supported him when he was in baseball, and even when he felt like his heart was not into that sport and he pursued football, they supported him in that too. But they just didn't understand his racially charged experiences in American society. I'm glad he's alive. I think that's mostly because he has sense. I hope his parents are more understanding now, because that was in high school. I would assume they grew with him and evolved with him. He did say in an interview that just being a constant journey for us, and it's one that we work through, and we have always been very loving in the process. So that was an interview with his parents that he did. I'll put that in the description box if you want to watch it. Yeah. I would assume that his parents grew with him and evolved with him and learned along the way. He said that it's just been a constant journey for us, and it's one that we work through, and we have always been very loving in the process. That's what he said about his parents in an interview. I'll put this interview in the description box if you want to watch it. So with all the things Kaepernick faced in high school, all the hatred that he's gotten from people and the media since he took a kneel during the national anthem, I feel like that pales in comparison to his experiences in high school. I feel like his experiences in high school prepared him for now. Seriously, prepared him for what he faced, with people in the media, etc. I feel like the hardest part for him was in high school. The hardest part is behind him. That's what I think. Another thing I noticed was that Kaepernick was always getting sick all the time. He was always getting flu, or he got pneumonia. And I feel like because he's an athlete, the real reason why he's always getting sick is because of his emotional ailments. Like when you have emotional ailments, that can get you sick. The stress of everything that he was going through was the real reason why he kept getting sick all the time. Because as an athletes have strong immune system because they're athletes. They're always physically fit, and when you're physically fit, you have strong immune system. Yet Colin Kaepernick was always getting sick all the time, so that means his sickness is a direct result of the emotional and mental state he was in. So I have to say, very strong guy. He's one tough cookie, seriously.